We're going to go ahead and get started. If folks would please take your seats, or if you're standing, that's fine as well. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting for Tuesday, July 5th, 2022 of the Whitefish City Council to order. We are meeting hybrid, both in person as well as remotely via WebEx, and our city manager, Dana Smith, is participating remotely this evening. Our first item on the agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to invite former Mayor Chris Coughlin to lead us this evening. Thanks, Chris. So, Bruce, I bet you're wondering why so many people, so many of your friends and supporters over the years are here this evening. And there's a reason we didn't there's a reason we didn't put this on the agenda, because we were afraid you wouldn't show up. Because you're so humble and have been so humble over the years in service to this community. And tonight, we wanted to award you with a Community Appreciation Award for your decades of volunteer service and leadership to the betterment of the community of Whitefish. And thanks for being here. I just have a few words, and then I'm going to open it up to Casey Malmquist and others that would like to make some comments this evening. But on behalf of the City Council, city staff, and your friends and colleagues, we are here tonight to recognize 35 plus years of community service to the city of Whitefish. For those of you that aren't aware, and I actually wasn't aware of several of these boards that Bruce has both volunteered on and worked for on behalf of the city. Back in 1988, the Industrial Park Feasibility Study. In 1994, parking behind the Whitefish Credit Union and City Hall. 1996, the Whitefish Business Park. 1997, the Drainage Pond Landscaping. 1999, the Golden Agers Bike Trail and Park Design. In 2002, the BNSF Loop Trail. In 2004 through present, the Tree Advisory Committee, currently a member. In 2007, a Trail Runs Through It Committee. In 2011, Bruce facilitated the Depot Park Master Plan Design Services with the City of Whitefish. And then finally in 2013, assisting with the redevelopment of Block 46, or where we're sitting here this evening. So Bruce, on behalf of us, thank you so much for all you've done for our community. We hope you don't go far. We hope that we still see you here at council meetings, but I would like to present you this recognition plaque for your years of service to this city. We're in a much better place we were given your efforts. Thank you. Casey, who was the main culprit behind this, Bruce?
I'm near tears with this, and got a late game hitch in this. I got word that he may not be able to attend tonight, and I was in a total panic about that. But we got him here. So I have had the honor and the pleasure of working with Bruce for about 30 of the 40 years that he's been here. And I'm amazed by this man, and have often commented how, and this is rare in my industry, is just how good he is at what he does. He is the consummate professional. And everything in this community that we enjoy, anything that functions well, looks beautiful, is this, the beautiful additions to this community. Bruce's fingerprints are on that in some way. And I can't express how grateful I am to what he has done for all of us in this community. Selflessly, the guy is a rock. So I'm really happy to honor you, my friend. You're a tremendous asset to this community, and I hope you spend every day here going forward continuing on that legacy. But thank you so much. You've enhanced my life, my career. You're a good friend. You're an unbelievable professional at what you do, and thank you.
Any other comments tonight before we move to public comment? You're off the hook, Bruce. There'll be no changes to the Caro 93 plat tonight.
I forgot the most important thing. I got a little overwhelmed here. So in honor of you, on the 95 Caro, which we've rebranded as Whitefish Yards, the trail section, which is this really integral part of the bike ped trail, because it connects 3 different trail systems together. We are naming that trail in your honor and the bridge. And you're a bridge builder. You've built a lot of bridges in this community. And so your name will live in perpetuity with that trail and that bridge.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Very nice words, Casey. Bruce, thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate it. We'll move on to communications from the public. We do have 2 public hearings scheduled for this evening, so if you're here to speak on those items, please wait till I get to that agenda, which is under item 6, public hearings. Otherwise, if you have anything to bring to the attention of the City Council, now would be your opportunity. And name and address for the record, please, when you approach the podium. Any public comment this evening? Yeah. Hi, Ryan.
Chris Coughlin, 319 Hagen Heights. I just want to say thank you for everything you all do, all your volunteer time, because you don't get paid a dime, which I think we should change. I think councilors and mayors should get paid. You're like the only town in the state of Montana that don't get paid. So we need to figure that out. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Further comment from the public?
Hello, my name's Alyssa LaChance. I'm at 1646 2nd Street East. So I own a small composting company called Dirt Rich out of Columbia Falls. We compost food and other organic waste from residents and businesses across the Flathead Valley and Olive Glacier National Park. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about some opportunities that we have as far as grants in the upcoming months. I reached out to Craig Workman, but also wanted to let you know about a very exciting and unique USDA grant opportunity I feel is incredibly important for us to act on as a community and as a city at this time. The USDA is awarding millions of dollars worth of grants to cities across the US who don't already have citywide composting programs in place. The grants are specifically to fund composting pilot programs so communities can get a sense of what systems and protocols would work best in their unique settings. Without having to spend their own money. I was born and raised in Whitefish, and I know this town has seen massive change and growth, and you all have so much on your plates to work with in terms of affordable housing, keeping up with maintenance and growth in a town that's so quickly growing in size and needs. That said, I've watched our options as a city dwindle in terms of responsible recycling and waste management over the years. As our population explodes, so does the amount of waste we produce as a community. This specific grant opportunity cannot be allotted to cities who would be in competition with small composting companies like myself who already serve the area. But if we teamed up, we could get large sums of money to help start piloting a program of some sort to get more information and see what we can make happen for the city. So if we were to team up on serving the community and diverting their organic waste from all of the residents in the city, which is 30 to 40% of the average household's waste stream, our local composting operations would be visible and engaged in the community, unlike metal and plastics recycling, which is shipped across the country or overseas. People have lost faith and trust in current recycling systems, but composting would be something that the community knew was truly beneficial to be doing, as we would operate and process their waste here. This would keep money within our community, create a number of higher paying jobs, and high quality and affordable soil amendments for local and farmers and gardeners. For Whitefish, to compost would be a hugely efficient and effective environmental act that would have a wide-ranging benefit to the community, including sequestering carbon, which is a part of the city's climate action plan. I have a fantastic working relationship with Justine, who heads bear operations for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and she's keen on helping us come up with a bear-safe system to compost in our little mountain town. My team and I recently visited the City of Missoula's composting operation, and we were inspired and impressed that they are well underway with important green developments for their residents. We can do this, and now's the time to start. The grant opportunity goes through September of this year, so the window is brief, and we have to act quickly if we're going to. Please let me know who I can speak with within the city if there's interest in continuing this vital conversation. Thanks so much, guys. Really
Alyssa,
appreciate
what was
your time.
the name of the grant?
I would have to look it back up again. It's a USDA grant specifically for community composting within townships that don't already have community composting set up.
Interesting. Thanks
Yep.
for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I'm sure we'll address this at the end of the meeting.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, Alyssa, if you don't mind, if you could email any information you have on the grants to the council or myself, and then I'll forward it on to Michelle Hauk, our city clerk. That would be helpful. Great, thanks. Mary.
Mary Flowers, Citizens for Better Flathead. Just briefly, following on the theme of recycling and composting, I think composting is a really positive and exciting proposition, so I do hope you can partner in that regard. I want to let you know that this past weekend with Flathead Recon, we hosted a glass recycling event in Columbia Falls. Collected 8,000 pounds of glass. We were supposed to start at 10, cars were lined up at 9:30, and until we shut down at 2, there was nonstop traffic there. So amazing demand for an outlet. Flathead Recon would love to have a better location to be able to serve the public better. But again, just as the city continues to move forward and look at your potential recycling site, there's a surprising amount of demand for glass recycling. Thank you.
Where did they take the glass, Mary? Just out of curiosity.
So currently, Flathead Recon's business plan is they grind the glass there on site, and they sell it in 5-gallon buckets, and primarily it's used for landscaping. If they were to scale up to a larger level, there's definitely markets, and Terra's demonstrated they've used it in concrete floors for their bus barn. It's been used in countertops, sidewalks, so, potentially there's a future for glass. Right now it's being done on a very small scale, but the demand is huge.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Further public comment this evening? Nathan.
Nathan Dugan, 937 Kalispell Avenue. Just a quick one since Chris brought it up. Been thinking about this for quite a few months now. You guys all getting paid, and future generations of you guys all getting paid. So it's obviously like an obscene amount of volunteer work that you have to do, especially like when things like Mountain Gateway come through and the packets are 1,200 pages long. I don't think that we should just expect you all to do that for free, especially if no place else in Montana is doing that. But I'm also concerned about representation for the entire community going into the future. And I think that that's a large barrier to people that maybe work in the service industry or have kids or whatever to even signing up to try to win a seat up here. So that is something I would like to see happen. And I emailed Angie about this a while ago. So it does require an amendment to the city charter. And there's 3 ways that we can do that, either through a petition, which requires 15% of electors at the last general election. Nobody can tell me what that number is, and the Flathead County election lady won't call me back, so I might have to go in there. I think it's only like 400 signatures, though, so I don't think that's an insurmountable thing to get on the ballot. Looks like you guys can also do it through an ordinance or through a study commission, whatever that means. So those are the 3 ways that we have to put that on the ballot. If you guys don't do it, I probably will, so thanks.
Question, Nathan?
Until then, you can call us the Affordable Council.
Thanks, Nathan, for your comments. Any further public comment this evening? Any volunteer board reports? Not seeing any. How about council volunteer boards? We will move on then to our consent agenda. Can I have a motion for approval? You have the minutes enclosed for both the regular session from June 20th, 2022, as well as the work session.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Sweeney. Changes or additions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like on page 28 of the packet, when the minutes state that the motion to increase for the resolution 22-12, adopting fees for solid waste disposal services, I'd like the record to show that my vote was the only against one, please.
Okay, thanks, Giuseppe. Further discussion on the consent agenda as amended or corrected? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that's unanimous as well. Michelle? That brings us quickly onto our public hearings. We do have 2 advertised for this evening. We'll start with item 6A, which is consideration of a request from Joe Gregory for a conditional use permit to develop a guest house located at 830 Dakota Avenue, and the property is zone WR1, which is our one-family residential district. Wendy.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
So again, this is a request for a conditional use permit for a guest house. The applicant is proposing to expand an existing 3-car garage and add a second floor that would be the guest house. The site has an existing single-family home. Access to the guest house will be shared with the existing single-family home and current garage. A CUP is required for guest houses in the WR1. The property is about 1.2 acres, is located at 830 Dakota Avenue, and is developed, again, with a single-family residence. The property is surrounded by residential uses in the Whitefish Lake, and the growth policy designation is urban. The property is served by all public services and facilities. We noticed advisory agencies, the neighbors, put a legal notice in the paper, and did not receive any comments. We reviewed the conditional use permit according to the criteria in the zoning regulations. The project does comply with the growth policy designation of urban. All the zoning requirements can be met and will be reviewed at the time of building permit. The site is suitable for the use. It has adequate land area, and there aren't any environmental hazards. There's adequate location for parking. The project does need to have 1 parking space for a guest house. And again, all water, sewer, and other facilities are available. The project shouldn't have a negative impact on the neighborhood. And Planning Board held a public hearing on June 16th. No one spoke at the hearing, and the Planning Board unanimously recommended approval, subject to the 6 conditions outlined in your packet. Just to go over a couple of these. 1 off-street parking space needs to be designated for the guest house, and we do require before a building permit sign off that the property owner provides the city with a deed restriction for the guest house. Guest houses, as you recall, cannot be rented. Can I answer any questions for you?
Thanks, Wendy. Any questions for Wendy on her staff report? Frank?
Wendy, I've probably seen this before, but walk me through, you're not also allowed to use it as a permanent residence for anyone employed in a home occupation on the property. Why do we do that?
I don't remember. You just can't have a home occupation in it. And why we did it that way?
Okay, you can't have a home occupation in it, as opposed to I can't have a nurse who might be servicing somebody that's in
Correct.
the house?
Correct, yep, you're right.
So, which is it? It can't be used as a home occupation.
Right, but if somebody's employed there and they're living there, you can't charge them rent.
Okay,
It can't be rented out.
okay.
It is intended for company.
But if I am in the need for a nurse for 24/7 care, I can't,
That's not their home occupation. I mean, they're there serving the resident.
okay. All right, that's fine. Now I understand now. Thanks.
Steve, did you have a question? Further questions from the council? We did advertise for a public hearing on item 6A of the agenda. We'll hear from the applicant's representative, Rich Grave, first. If you have anything, Rich, or nothing to add? With that said, any public testimony on this item? Not seeing any, I'll close the public hearing and turn it back to the council for a motion. Andy?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve WCUP 22-17, and that's with the findings of fact and staff report and recommended conditions of approval as recommended to us by our very own Whitefish Planning Board.
And
I'll
I
second.
second it.
16.
Seconded by Councilor Sweeney. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed, like sign, and that motion carries unanimously. Good to see you, Rich. We'll move on to item 6B of our agenda, which is consideration of a request from Rain Dancer LLC for a conditional use permit to develop 122 self-storage units in 4 buildings located at 6394 Highway 93 South, and the property is zoned RWB2, which is our secondary business commercial district. Wendy.
Okay, I got an aerial map just so you could see where it is. It's behind the hotel that's behind the Army Navy, just so you know in context where the, I should have drawn a little square around that property there, but just so you know where that's located there. You can see the hotel's kind of near the bottom. Or no, near the top, near the middle. Yeah, it's in that, yeah, right, okay. I should have put a square around it. But I had a few people asking, where is this located? Because it's off of an easement that's off of Highway 93 with a Highway 93 address. So there's the property. So you can switch to the site plan if you like. So again, self-storage, mini storage buildings. They're proposing to have 1 building along the north, 1 building along the west, and 2 buildings in the center of the property. The central and westerly buildings are 2-story. There are 35 dedicated parking spaces provided, and they're located along the southern property line and within the center of the project. Vehicles will enter off that northeast corner and circulate through the development with a 30-foot wide, via the 30-foot wide private access and utility easement that runs along the north side of the Army Navy and the hotel out there. Vehicles will loop through the site and exit in the same manner. A CUP is a requirement for mini storage in the WB2 zoning district. Again, the property is at 6394 Highway 93 South. It's about 1.2 acres. It is currently undeveloped. It is surrounded by commercial uses, residential to the south, and undeveloped, which was recently rezoned to the west. The zoning is WB2. The growth policy designation is general commercial. The property is served by all public services and facilities. Again, we noticed neighbors, advisory agencies, put a legal in the paper and a sign on the property, and we didn't receive any comments on this project. And similar to the other one, we do review conditional use permits according to the criteria in the zoning regulations. The project complies with the growth policy designation of general highway commercial because it's consistent with the WB2. This project is also, or this property is also located within the Highway 2 corridor in the segment B, which is intended for a diversity of business uses. The project is meeting all the zoning requirements, including parking, which is 1 space per 800 square feet of gross floor area. It has 15-foot setbacks on all sides. Maximum height is 35 feet, which will be confirmed at the time of building permit. So it does comply with all the zoning, and we'll confirm that again at the time of building permit. There's adequate space for the uses and all the parking and can meet all the setbacks. And the emergency services access can also be met and has been reviewed by the fire department. There's no other environmental constraints. It's a pretty flat piece of property. Again, water and sewer are all available. Stormwater will be managed on site. The project did not submit a TIS because it'll generate less than 200 trips per day. And it is compatible with the neighborhood because there are commercial uses surrounding it, and it is a well-landscaped project. The planning board held a public hearing on June 16th. The applicant's representative spoke at the hearing. No one from the public provided any comments, and the planning board unanimously recommended approval. Subject to the 7 conditions in your packet, and they're just sort of our standard conditions. We want to make sure that they maintain and prevent noxious weeds from spreading during the construction. The fire department will review the engineering standards to make sure that all the fire department requirements can be met. We'd like to have them get their refuse disposal and recycling reviewed by Public Works and Republic Services. And that's about it. Can I answer any questions for you?
Thanks, Wendy. Any questions for Wendy? Steve?
Wendy, this is adjacent to the property we recently annexed and did the split zoning on?
Yep,
Okay,
that's
so it's
directly to the
east?
west. This is to the east.
This is to the east
yeah,
of that?
mhm.
Okay, so this
So
does
there's
not,
a strip of about 112 feet of WB2 to the west of this project.
okay, all right. So it's not going to be on the future Baker extension? I mean, I read that in the minutes, but I just wanted to
It's
double
to the
check.
east.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. And then typically, storage units have razor wire fences. Is that something that is, or they have those weird backwards facing fences like we have on the viaduct so people can't get in or out or whatever it is?
I haven't seen, or they haven't submitted any fencing proposal, but it is going to
Okay.
be secured
Okay.
with
And
a gate and fence.
what is our, do we allow razor wire or whatever it is to protect, keep? I'm just thinking of the other places I see around the valley that are all protected with some sort of fencing that I don't think fits within what we want to see.
Kate, if you don't mind
Yeah.
approaching the podium, please.
Yeah, I guess
and just
maybe
name-
this is
name and
questions
address
for
the
you,
record.
and we
We
can
can
wait.
wait until we hold the public
Yeah,
hearing,
that's
if you don't
fine, I'll
mind,
wait.
Kate.
Under fencing, security fences are allowed inside and rear yards up to 8 feet in height when used to enclose commercial or industrial storage yards. Because 6.5 feet is the standard, so they could go up to 8 feet.
Additional questions for Wendy? Ben?
Wendy, so well, actually, let me start here. This might be more for Craig. Craig, if I'm thinking of this right approach, it's the one on the subway and that whole thing's on one side, on the north side? No?
It's to the south.
To the south?
There's 2 parallel
Yeah,
driveways,
it's got
one
that
that serves,
weird-
one that serves the hotel and Army Navy, and one that serves the subway and
Yeah.
the hotel and I think an RV.
So
thing.
I've found that
They're
approach
kinda-
to be really confusing. Am I alone in that? Is that?
On here?
Microphone, Craig? Please.
The wrong way? Am I on now? There we go. Okay. I would tend to agree. I think it is a confusing means of ingress, egress, especially to a state highway. We looked at the trip counts that were projected for this based on the manual on uniform traffic safety, and it did not require any type of traffic impact analysis. It's simply an easement. It's not a public road. It's not even a private road for that matter. It's an easement that allows ingress, egress through a number of different businesses. And there's kind of a median that runs down the middle. So I guess that's all I'll tell you. I agree, it's confusing.
Okay. Is the parcel to the west of this that we just annexed, is it intended that that parcel will eventually access through here?
I mean, the easement does go all the way to the western boundary of this lot, so there's a potential if they work something out. But it's it's not wide enough for a public street.
Right.
I mean, they'd have to enter into some sort of agreement. There's some improvements that need to happen. When that subdivision was done where the Army Navy and the hotel, because it was all one lot, and then they chopped off those other 2 lots. I think we sort of imagined at some point in the future that, these guys have 30 feet and maybe the property to the north could potentially have 30 feet and maybe together they could build, some sort of 60-foot, or there's the potential for a 60-foot right-of-way there. So they provided for half that on their side. But at this point, there's no public access.
Very strange.
We're just planning for the future.
Gotcha. And then another one for you, Craig. Where does all the stormwater discharge from this much hardscape if there's no improvements in the road?
So they will have to maintain stormwater on site. Not sure which direction it'll flow in terms of an overflow, but they will have to control stormwater to pre-development rates.
Okay.
We'll see all of that when the engineering plans come in,
Sure.
which is a requirement. Of course, a condition of approval that, complete engineering plans be submitted and approved by Public Works, and that'll include stormwater.
Is there not always some eventual discharge, even if it, like at flood levels or something like that?
Well, the intention is that there's no more discharge than currently exists today, is the way that the engineering standards read.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay. Craig, quick question for you. Baker Avenue's future extension, this doesn't conflict or affect that?
Where we show the Baker Avenue corridor would be to the west of this project, and then we have a few segments of Baker Avenue right-of-way acquired to the south of here through Whitefish Crossing and the Hampton Inn, and this would not conflict.
Okay, great. Thanks. With that said, we'll go to our public hearing, and we did advertise for a public hearing on this item. Is there any public testimony? And I would invite the applicant. Do you have anything else to add to the staff report? Great. I think Rebecca may have one for you. Let's start with Rebecca's question, and then if there's further public comment.
One thing, are you allowing RVs at this site? Or
No.
is it, okay, no RVs. Some of them do, they have them. And then what did you decide about the bathroom? Yeah, no bathroom?
I don't believe that was requested by the owner.
Okay, and then there's no owner on site,
Correct.
but how will that be managed? Just people have a key to get in?
Yeah, there will be an entry gate code.
And then
for each unit.
will be emergency contact information
Yes.
listed? Okay. Those are the only questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca. Further public testimony this evening? Go ahead. Yep.
Could you go back to the question about the fencing?
So I believe what is currently anticipated is that the automatic gate and the front fence, or so the fence that's facing the hotel, will be like an ornamental iron type fence at 8 feet height, and then the rest will be a chain link, is what is anticipated at this time.
Anything at the top of that?
I don't
chain
believe
link?
so.
Okay.
I don't think it's.
Sorry, I just have a.
Did you try to jump one of those fences
no.
one day?
I've seen a lot of self-storage units pop up in the valley, as we all have, and a lot of them have these really awful-looking fences around them, and that doesn't fit with, with
Where
what we
this
want
is
to see
going.
in the city. So that's my concern. And
Yeah,
I think
to be fair, we have not spoken about that specifically, but it also hasn't been spoken about. So I think that's where we left off, and I anticipate that's where we're headed as far as the chain link and the ornamental iron on the hotel side.
Okay, thank you.
Giuseppe.
Yes, thank you for coming. This is just for my education.
Sure.
Does your lease agreement states no vehicles inside, meaning even small cars?
I can't speak to that, unfortunately.
So I'm curious, people are storing more and more electric cars seasonally. Are you thinking about power into those units? And this is just educational for
I
me.
don't believe so. Aside from providing power, like for the interior units, as far as wayfinding goes, I do not believe that is anticipated.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions for Kate? Any public testimony this evening? Not seeing any, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to the council for a motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move to approve WCUP 22-20, the findings of fact and the staff report as and recommended conditions of approval as recommended by the Whitefish Planning Board on June 16, 2022.
Is there a second to the motion?
I don't like storage units, but that's generally, but I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Sweeney. Further discussion?
Yes, I'm asking that Andy doesn't hate me for this.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed, like sign. And the motion does pass on a 5-1 vote with Councilor.
Just by the way, I should have discussed it. I think there's no single land use that's destroyed more highway corridors in this valley than mini storage units. They're a scourge in our county. I hate the damn things. I have to say that. And now there's going to be one in our town, and I understand that my personal dislike of them is not grounds to not approve the conditioned use, but in all good conscience, I can't vote for it.
And the motion does carry on a 5-1 vote with Councilor Fury voting in opposition. We'll move on to item 7. Dana is joining us this evening remotely. You have her report enclosed with the packet. Any questions for Dana? Dana, are you there?
I am here.
Anything to report on tonight?
I would say just one thing, we've been working very closely with the Housing Authority, Riss, our housing coordinator and long-range planner. She's done a great job really coordinating with the Housing Authority on the snow lot project. So we're hoping to get you guys an update at some point, but there's progress being made there. And, we're continuing to look at that Monaghan Road project as well with Housing Whitefish. So we'll have updates for you, in the coming months or so to give you an idea of where we are at for both of those projects. But other than that, we're just hiring. So anybody online or in the audience, look at our job openings. We're hopeful we'll have a finance director on board very soon.
Thanks, Dana. I think Giuseppe and Steve both had questions.
Yes, Dana, next time you fly on a Black Hawk, you either call me or you double your insurance.
That was quite the experience. We're blessed to be able to do that and participate in that opportunity.
Steve.
Dana, you said that you were close to a decision in your report about finance director. Have you gotten any further along on that?
We did hear back, so we are working on negotiating at this point with one of the candidates, and hopefully we'll have something by the end of the week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Dana. Appreciate your input. We'll move on to item 8, communications from the governing body. You have resolution 22-14 establishing annual goals for the city. Any comments on these goals that have been vetted via work sessions? Giuseppe.
Yes, I stated them on an email to Dana, and Dana replied to all of us. But I just want to comment on the fact that we are not explaining if the order of these goals is by priority or importance or by chronology. And it's neither by admission of some of the stuff during the working session. So I just would like to comment to the fact that maybe we should resort them. Yes, and also Steve and Councilman Cunell and I had discussed about raising to awareness about the Caro Avenue shoulder lane, and which we thought we were gonna see it, no? Just the shoulder lane, not the sidewalks. It was just we could look at a shoulder lane for safety, and I don't see it here. And maybe we should have another 15 minutes discussion, but that was my comment.
Thanks, Giuseppe. Further comments on the goals? Rebecca.
Can we add goals late like this? Like if I wanted to add a goal, how does that work?
Dana, do you want to address that? I think I know the
Yeah,
answer.
you guys these are your city council goals. So if there is something that we've missed between the work session and now, you can amend them. These are, keep in mind, these are flexible goals. They are not going to include every small little project that we work on for you, but big overarching goals is really what we're focusing on. But if you want to just let us know, we can amend that resolution. You would amend the exhibit as you would other resolutions you've amended during your motions.
So like, for instance, the ethics policy never was adopted years ago, and I was on that committee, and so I'm wondering, can we have the attorneys look at that and revisit it for a training session and standards for staff and volunteers?
If that's a question for me, I would say, we can obviously, if that's a goal of the council, we can absolutely work on something like that. I would say that to get concurrence to add it to this specific list, we would need concurrence of a majority at this point.
Does it necessarily need to be an adopted goal, Rebecca, or just something you'd like to see in a future work session, given other
I
priorities?
don't think it will happen unless we have it as a goal. It's been years since I was on that committee, like over a decade, and it's never been revisited. And I just think with the amount of money that comes through our community and the tremendous amount of work that we do, I think it just needs to be pretty clearly defined that we have a state ethics standard and that we have a city ethics standard. And I think it's important, not for you guys, but for future people. I just think it's like, I attended a 4-hour state workshop on the state ethics law on my own time, and then I went through that ethics committee, and it was really important in terms of defining what ethics are versus the law. So I think it's always been a goal since it got turned down by that one council, and I don't think we'll do it unless we have it as a goal.
So we have an entirely new council since that came to council years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Andy was mayor at the time, I'm not sure. Before we added as a goal.
But Mike was mayor at that time.
Mike was, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be more helpful for the seated councilors to have staff bring back what they've worked on in the past and kind of bring them up to speed with what our ethics policy speaks to before we actually adopt it as a goal. Would you be okay with that?
Well, will we get it done?
If you have the showing of hands and the support of the council, you can add it to a future work session.
Really, a work session?
Yep.
Okay, I would say that would be a good idea as a way to start.
Okay.
Would you guys be willing for a work session on ethics?
Showing of hands?
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Is that okay, Dana?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. I know you guys are slammed, but.
I have a few others.
Okay.
One is succession planning, making sure that we're encouraging volunteers to rise up through the ranks, learn parliamentary procedure, take increasing responsibility. I don't know how to address that, but I'm concerned about it since so many of us have been here for literally decades, and we need to have new people training into the public process, and having an in-house traffic engineering, at least a consultant, so that we don't have conflicts about what is safe for the community at the expense of approving projects, and also long-term planning. And then another one is the river corridor. I think similar to our Lakeshore Protection Committee, I think we need to start looking at protecting the river with some kind of a committee and a volunteer engagement. So I'm just putting them out here because I really think these are concerns that I have for the city, and I don't know where else to put them other than council goals.
Thanks, Rebecca. Further comments on goals? Steve, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 22-14, a resolution establishing annual goals for the city.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ben. Further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and that motion does carry unanimously. Who would like to start tonight? Giuseppe? Right to left.
Okay. I just wanted to bring back up the discussion about the USDA grant for composting. And I have no idea about the process, but obviously it's something that we should support somehow. And maybe it's about giving poor Craig some more direction. I have no idea if the more senior members of this council could help me with the process, but I just wanted to remind ourselves about that opportunity.
Craig, did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so I did receive an email from Alyssa last week on this USDA program. It's called the Cfwr, Composting and Food Waste Reduction Program. Apparently there's about $10 million in grant opportunities, and it's specifically geared towards cities, towns, counties, tribal entities working with local composting companies on providing pilot projects for communities, from what I can gather. I was wearing a few extra hats last week and didn't have a chance to call Alyssa back, but I had every intention of doing so. And so if council would like, I could report to you guys at the next meeting.
That'd be great.
Okay. I don't know, I mean, given the complexity of the solid waste changes that we're making right now with bear carts and the possibility of moving back onto a central recycling site, this would potentially add a whole nother dynamic, but I'm happy to explore it and come back for some additional direction.
Thanks, Craig. Is that sufficient, Giuseppe? Okay, thank you. Anything further? Thanks. Steve?
Just wanted to give voice to how busy it's been around town and on the trailheads, because I'm out there every chance I can get, and it's busy out there. And we're dealing with, we're trying to figure out what's best for the Reservoir Trail. And I was up there the other day, and there were 26 cars, and I passed 18 people and 16 bikes in about 40 minutes on the trail. So
You passed the bike?
yes, I did. They were going uphill. I was coming down. So it is busy out there, and that specific section of trail is probably one of the busiest.
You also have cars overflowing onto Reservoir Road now, parking.
Yeah, and there's
some
a
of the
lot
parking's occurring on private property.
Wow, and there's a lot of groups that go up there and hike and run, and I mean, I've passed routinely, there's usually a group of people running if I go in the afternoon up there, and it's like 8 or 10 people all running.
One way to control that is through parking enforcement. Craig, I know that's a county road, but could we work with the county on signage along Reservoir Road, no parking?
You can investigate that, sure.
I think it may help. I mean, there were 6 cars parked there on Saturday.
Oh, really?
On the road.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Frank?
Nothing this evening. Happy 4th. And
Absolutely.
it was a little noisier than I cared for.
Ben?
Nothing to add this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Rebecca?
Yep, I did get some comments on fireworks and people asking if we could pass an ordinance that would limit the kind of fireworks that we are allowing in town because they're so loud, and also maybe going to having our fireworks display done on the weekend. So I think as the warming continues, we'll have to revisit this every year perhaps, so that we don't go into fires too. So I know we didn't really talk about it too much this year. I wanted to congratulate Bruce on his acknowledgement of all the work. When I was on the tree committee the first time, he was on it, and he's still on it. And he always reminds me whenever I'm listening to him as we're walking along the avenues to decide what to plant where, how thoughtful he is with how our town develops and how beautiful it has become because of the kind regard he has for the way it develops. And so we're very fortunate to have him as one of our long-standing volunteers. And then in terms of the grant, I think it would be wonderful if we could get that. I have had conversations also with Dave from Flathead Recon about us doing more use of crushed glass in our trail system and our roads. Because we have a resort tax, we might be able to use that. And so if we do go to a centralized recycling, I think it would be a good idea to look at collection of glass, even if we did the crushing at some point at a different location because of the safety issues. So I'm just going to plant that seed as well to Craig. I talked to Angie about an autonomy policy. She's our attorney, and it was a pretty shocking change of events for women to lose civil rights. And so that might be something that we will look at in the future. I agree with Nathan that we're at a pivot point in terms of allowing people that live normal lives to participate in the public process. If someone's independently wealthy and not working, it's a whole different thing than if they're managing a family, a job, and have limited resources to volunteer. So when I was on the Local Government Review Commission, that was my recommendation at that time, that the mayor and the council be paid so that we could actually have a larger pool of people volunteering for the city. And so I think we're at that point now where we should be looking at that. Even though if it means Nathan's going to do the petition, that might be what it takes, since it didn't work through the study commission. And let's see, I appreciate that we have 2 new planners, and that's all. Just celebrate your freedom.
Thanks, Rebecca. Andy.
Just to clarify Nathan's statements a little bit that he made earlier, there are 3 methods to go to the ballot, is what he really meant. You say there's 3 methods to do it. One is by ordinance. No, we can't do that by ordinance. No, we can't just do it as a government study commission. It's those 3 methods. You can get it on the ballot, but ultimately the way our charter works, it is a vote of the people in this community that will make that decision, not us. And I think that needs to be very, very clear. And quite frankly, I've always said if it is something that is going to happen and needs to happen, then I think it should be a citizen initiative. I think it should come from the community. I don't think it's something that should come from us up here on the bench. I think that is probably dooms it to failure, quite frankly. If we say, hey, we're going to get paid, then, you know, we probably won't. People go, oh, he wants to get a bunch
Or you just won't get reelected.
Yeah, he won't get reelected. He's going to get a bunch of money. So I just wanted to make that point.
Yep.
So it's
Thanks, Andy.
So it's not. But other than that, I have nothing other than I make this comment every year when the annual onslaught of tourists flood through the gates and show up in town, and just always want to remind everybody that Central Avenue is not Disneyland's Main Street USA, and letting your children run out. I sat at Fleur the other morning, and letting your children run out from behind diagonally parked cars into an active city street is a recipe for disaster. And it happens Bridger, you know better than I do. And it's, parents, please, please be careful. I watched a kid almost get smacked the other day, and it was just, seems like such a benign thing, but it's not. And you can't see a little kid running out from behind a bumper. So please, everybody, just be careful. So,
Thanks, Andy. Welcome, Ren. It's nice to see a new face at the bench. Appreciate you being here this evening. Craig, circling back, composting kind of triggered this in my mind. When are we going to revisit our decision on centralized recycling versus curbside?
I don't know that we actually have it scheduled, but I think the next course of action, if we want to go back to possibly a centralized site, is to rebid it. We need to go out for new bids. It's been probably 2 years now. So I don't know if council would like to see it at a work session to look at the RFP from the last round, or just give me direction to rebid it. But that would be the next step, I think.
Council? Rebid it? Okay. Have we decided that that's our policy decision in terms of curbside?
Dana has a point to make too.
Versus centralized. Dana.
Hi, over here.
Sorry.
Behind you. Behind you, John. Or maybe in front of you. I don't know on your screen. But I wanted to just, I would recommend we do a work session because I think we need to revisit how that site's paid for. We're implementing the animal resistant containers that came at a cost to our ratepayers. Let's sit down and actually have a work session to remind ourselves, I guess, what that cost looks like to operate a central site because it's not necessarily free. And so that would be my recommendation before just giving Craig direction to go out to bid because it takes time for these vendors to prepare their proposals.
I totally agree. And what triggered this was the presentation from Melissa on this potential USDA grant and perhaps leveraging money to assist with the construction of that facility, which was always intended to, house a composting facility as well. So just take advantage of that if we can from a construction standpoint.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, Craig. Lastly, or two more items. Next steps from our meeting with the Flathead Conservation District. Has there been any follow-up between the two entities?
Yeah, so since we met, we've been corresponding with the Conservation District. We sent them a copy of our draft guidelines that we're working on for paths along rivers and streams. I provided them with a list of the projects that we've constructed that we did receive 124 permits for, and we're working on getting that onto their map through some better diagrams. It's my understanding that they wanted to have a meeting with staff to specifically discuss the Malmquist Miles Avenue project, and we haven't scheduled that yet, but we have been in correspondence with staff and we're working through some of those to-dos.
Great. Thanks, Craig. Pleased to see that's moving forward. And then lastly, Dave, there were some sidebar discussions after our work session ended regarding our thought of incorporating criteria in the annexation policy, and correct me if I'm wrong, who I had the discussion with, but it would seem that just extracting that information from both the growth policy as well as the strategic housing plan and embedding it in the policy would make some sense, because then we're not having to reference two other documents outside the policy, and it may make your life easier than reinventing the wheel. So just a thought.
Look at that.
Okay. Anything further from you tonight, Dana? How about staff, council? We are adjourned. Thanks.